This video is brought to you by Raycon. You're in for a treat. Super Mario Galaxy 2 is a great game, but it set a very dangerous precedent. It planted an idea in our collective minds that at times threatens to drive us to insanity. Galaxy 2 established that mainline 3D Mario games could have sequels. We've all got our wish lists, our pie-in-the-sky dreams, but this gave us yet another thing to hope for, wish for, pray for. Since Galaxy 2, we've all had to carry the burden of hope that our most beloved Mario games just might get sequels someday. But the funny thing is, out of all the 3D Mario games, the idea of getting yet another Galaxy dominates the whole Mario sequel conversation. There was a lot of buzz about a Super Mario Odyssey 2 during the Switch generation, just because Odyssey 1 released so early in a very long generation. And personally, it felt like there was still so much they could do with the mechanics. Not sure if I've ever said that before. But no, for the most part, you ask people about 3D Mario sequels, they are very likely to jump straight to Galaxy 3. And it makes sense. The Galaxy games really struck a chord with people. The way I see it, Galaxy was when Nintendo really hit their stride, really figured out how to put Mario into a 3D space and keep it fun the whole time, without all the janky awkwardness. Both games are so well designed, Nintendo creativity at its dazzling best, and the theming, the space theme, it permeates the visual style, the atmosphere, the story, but then of course the mechanics, all the gravity stuff. Instead of just levels, you've got planets and spaceships and stuff. Just remarkable experiences all around. And it's more than just the games though. The Wii generation was huge. This was the most popular Nintendo had ever been since the NES craze. Mario was a big deal again. So you got this whole generation of people, a huge number, who got Wiis as kids and kinda cut their teeth on the Galaxy games. And when you play a game like that at a time like that, the experience ingrains itself deep into your heart. And then, again, of course, the fact that we got two of them, we got a 1 and a 2, add it all together and it's not surprising at all that Galaxy 3 comes so readily to people's lips when you talk about Mario sequels. So then the question is, if they did it twice, why not thrice? Could Super Mario Galaxy 3 actually be in the cards? Well, the biggest issue we come up against immediately is that there's no precedent for this, for either a third entry in a sub-series of a greater series, or for a direct sequel that comes many years after the fact. And of course, there doesn't have to be a precedent for something to happen. Galaxy 2 was a new thing, which set its own precedent, but the circumstances were different. They had so many ideas that they had to do another game, and they did it right away. Only took a few years, a relatively short time, all things considered. They were all fired up on Mario in space and rolled right into another one. But then it seems they finally felt satisfied and moved on to something completely different. The idea of returning to Galaxy without the benefit of all that momentum is a whole different story. They may have used up all their best ideas in 2. I mean, they've basically said as much in interviews. At the same time though, they were able to comfortably do a whole sequel without any of it feeling like fluff. It's really amazing. Apart from the story, Galaxy 2 does not feel superfluous in the slightest. Design-wise, it's entirely its own whole experience that justifies its own existence easily. That's gotta mean there's still at least a good bit of stuff left on the cutting room floor, right? Even if not enough for a whole game, even if they just had a couple of ideas left, well, surely some of the people on the team have been able to come up with a few more ideas in the last 16 years. I mean, that's enough time for people to have grown up playing Galaxy, had the games impact them and their design sensibilities, ignite the very desire and passion for making games, and then to have grown up and gotten hired by Nintendo. It's a very long time. Between those people and the senior designers and everyone in between, It's hard for me to believe that they couldn't cook something up, that it would be impossible to come up with enough new ideas. But you know Nintendo, they work in mysterious ways. They don't do things just because they could. You know, look at another company with a really successful game, with a really successful sequel. There's a pretty okay chance they're gonna do another one. But Nintendo doesn't always work that way. As always, I will point out that this idea that they're the exact same as every other company and they do nothing but chase money with endless sequels is objectively wrong. Factually incorrect. If all they did was chase money, they would have made Galaxy games until they made one that sold and reviewed so poorly that they had to pivot to something else. They would have milked it dry. And we would have a new 3D Mario game every couple years at most. There would have been 2 more Odyssey games on the Switch. At the time of this recording, we've only had 2 3D Mario games since Galaxy 2, for Pete's sake. Oh, I guess technically 3? It's really hard to remember that 3D Land is a thing. I don't know, it was so little. It was a handheld game. So kind of like 2.6? Oh man, but then there's Bowser's Fury. But that's not even a whole game. There have only been 3.28 3D Mario games since Galaxy 2, for Pete's sake. Anyway, Nintendo is the only company of their size that operates on feel, vibes. They do what sounds fun. They don't make a game unless they feel inspired to do so, unless they are absolutely bursting with ideas. Just having ideas isn't enough though. You could take any Mario game and brainstorm a whole bunch of ideas for a potential sequel. Ideas aren't really the problem. They've got to be the right ideas. Ideas that really start that creative fire. Nintendo works on their games for so long until they are just right. They release them so rarely, so they're very careful about what they decide to work on. I guarantee that Galaxy 3 wouldn't just be Galaxy 3. The same thing a third time. Again, all these years later, without the momentum, starting fresh, building something from the ground up for modern hardware. But even more, now they've got the hindsight, all these years of history, observing how the original games impacted people, how video games themselves have developed and grown, and now you're making something for a largely new audience. Tackling something like Galaxy 3, returning to a very specific style of game within a greater series so many years after the fact, Nintendo hasn't done it before. Sequels many years after the fact, sure, of course, you could maybe point out some vaguely similar examples, but I don't think they've done something quite like this, something this specific, something of this scope. And if they did make Galaxy 3 in this modern age, this would need to be a very different game. There would have to be some element, some new mechanic to refresh the experience. The gravity mechanic is still fun, but it doesn't have the same novelty anymore. And it's not like you can just add Yoshi and a couple new power-ups again. No, this would have to be some big shakeup. I certainly believe Nintendo is capable of putting a new spin on things and really revamping the whole experience. But then again, even if this is something they could do and that could even be really fun for them, the big question is, would it be fun enough? Consider the opportunity cost of making Galaxy 3. Nintendo spends so much time on each Mario game, so using up a whole entire dev cycle on Galaxy 3 means not making a brand new Mario in all that time. That's a whole brand new Mario with some brand new idea that didn't get to be made. And Nintendo has said many, many times that they tend to shy away from direct sequels and remakes and whatnot because they value new experiences above all else. They like to surprise us. They like to explore uncharted territory. If they were to return to Galaxy, it would mean that they were very, very serious about returning to Galaxy. It would be a very big decision to make. Okay, I'm real sorry to interrupt your video, everyone. Gosh, I'm so sorry. I know you kids are having a good time, but Arlo wanted me to remind you that this video was brought to you by Raycon. Arlo got me a pair of Everyday Earbuds Classic last year for Father's Day, and I'm still using these things basically every day, just like the name. It's like a true story. They're amazing. I've still got neck pain from the audio gear we had when I was younger, so I just can't believe these things sound so good even when they're so small. They fit so perfectly in my ear. So tiny and comfy and warm and snug, just like Arlo used to fit in my arms. Oh, I love him. I'm retired and I'm always busy with house projects, so these things are perfect. Quick charging gives me like 90 minutes of playtime with only 10 minutes of charging. I can get up to 8 hours on a full charge and up to 32 using the case. Crazy. Active noise cancellation is perfect for when the neighbors are playing their darn music too loud. And I want to listen to my music too loud. Then you got multi-point connectivity, multiple sound profiles, all sorts of good features I don't really understand, but that's okay. So upgrade your dad's everyday routine. Go to buyraycon.com/Arlo or click the link in the description to get 15% off. Thanks again to Raycon for sponsoring this video. It was real sweet of you. All right, that's all I wanted to say. I'll let you get back to your Space Mario video. I hope to make another one for you. So between the historical precedent and Nintendo's own inclination towards new experiences, I'm personally a little doubtful that they'll be giving us a Galaxy 3. However, I must admit that there is one element we haven't even talked about yet and that we simply cannot ignore. Super Mario Galaxy holds a particularly special place in the hearts of many, and clearly it holds a particularly special place in the hearts of the people who made it as well. 64 and Sunshine? Yeah, they get referenced here and there, of course they do. Elements from those games have certainly endured. But Galaxy? I don't know, those games have a very strong style. And that style and those ideas have spilled over into other games so many times. The very next game after Galaxy, the very next home console game after Galaxy, 3D World, had multiple entire worlds themed after Galaxy, with space and Lumas and some of the same mechanics and enemies and the music and everything. Rosalina was a playable character. She really seemed like she would be a one-off character that would exist only in her own games, and yet she's a regular part of the crew now. She shows up everywhere. And of course, when the time came to make a sequel to the first Mario movie, where did Miyamoto's mind go? Super Mario Bros. Movie 2? Would've worked fine. Super Mario World? Even better. I kinda was about ready to bet money on it. The next logical step. It's perfect. But no, they went straight to Galaxy. Right there, just immediately. I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that movie representation makes certain game projects more or less likely. For instance, I don't think Fox being in a Mario movie means we're getting a new Star Fox game. Uh-oh, gotta change that line. For instance, I don't think Rob being in a Mario movie means we're gonna get a new Rob, whatever. I'm just saying these things take so long to produce. Nintendo is so finicky about what they work on. I can't really see them strategically lining up all this stuff years in advance. So a Super Mario Galaxy movie doesn't necessarily mean that a Galaxy 3 must be in development. I don't even know if it makes it seem more likely. I think it's probably just the movie Miyamoto wanted to do next. However, I can't deny just how Galaxy crazy they've gone here. The Galaxy love has been abundant. New Galaxy amiibo? Alright, why not? Putting Rosalina and her little Luma friend in Wonder after the fact? Re-releasing both Galaxy games? Okay, I mean, that's not really a stretch. That was inevitable, right? Oh, but then giving Galaxy 2 its own whole unique storybook and even adding one last chapter, also quite after the fact? Maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill here, but if anything, just the storybook stuff. For some reason that really does it for me. It's just that none of this was necessary. Not at all. Not in the slightest. And yet Nintendo did it. It was that important to them that they came up with a whole new story and made art for it and dug into the Galaxy 2 files so they could stick it in. That wasn't gonna sell tickets to the Super Mario Galaxy movie, but they did it anyway. And, spoilers for the Super Mario Galaxy movie, not sure how long we gotta do spoiler warnings for this. It's probably the last time I have patience for. The emotional crux of the movie was the revelation that Peach and Rosalina are sisters who were separated when Peach was a baby. Miyamoto's not a big lore guy, and yet this was a story he really wanted to tell. And he's even gone on record saying that he likes the idea of incorporating this idea into future games. That relationship is important to him. It could easily be argued that this is all just for the movie. It was fun for them to dredge up all this old stuff and play with it again and do all this crossover promotion stuff, and now that they've done it, they'll leave it at that. Maybe this was them getting the galaxy bug out of their system again for another 16 years. And yet their enthusiasm has been kind of remarkable. Nintendo loves Super Mario Galaxy. This is all a bit more than I expected, to be honest. The movie happening and happening this soon, and then seeing just how hard they've been loving on these games. It's impossible not to let the idea of a Super Mario Galaxy 3 maybe actually being kind of possible worm its way into my brain. You know, it's just plausible enough, you know? There's been so much Galaxy love that if they announced Galaxy 3, I would act all surprised, but then it would be like, what'd you expect, man? Like, did you see the movie? Did you see all this other stuff? Like, it wouldn't be that surprising. And that's why I can't let go of the idea entirely. Even if there isn't much precedent for this kind of thing, even if something tells me that it's not that likely, it's very possible. I just can't deny that it's very possible. And things get even more interesting when you look at what Nintendo themselves have said on the matter. Shortly after the reveal of Super Mario 3D World, IGN's Richard George had a chance to ask why they went with this title instead of Galaxy 3. He reported, "In short, the answer lies in 3D World's emphasis on simultaneous 4-player local-only gameplay. Producer Yoshiaki Koizumi and director Koichi Hayashida told me that when Super Mario 3D Land was in development, they believed a multiplayer element would be a fantastic addition to that style of game. Though the concept didn't make it into that 3DS game, they believed the power of Wii U would allow them to fully realize those mechanics." I feel like it would have been reasonable for them to just say, we wanted to do something different. You know, like the next thing, because that was the previous thing, and now we're doing a new thing. But instead, they suggested that wanting to do something with multiplayer was the reason. Possibly implying that if it weren't for that, Galaxy 3 would have definitely been considered? It's not a direct quote, so we can't read too far into it, but it is interesting. Then later in 2013, the topic came up again in an Iwata Asks interview with Miyamoto, who said, "The same team can't make both Super Mario 3D World and another Super Mario Galaxy game at the same time. And we can't bring in a second party and slap the name Super Mario Galaxy on it. I suppose we could idealistically make both in Tokyo, but we want to do something new too, so there was that dilemma. Personally, I would like to take on a variety of new challenges with Super Mario Galaxy and design 2D Super Mario games in an easy-to-understand way with certain restraints." This very much suggests that Miyamoto would indeed like to make a Galaxy 3, but they just don't have enough dev power to make multiple big Mario games at once. It's possible that they might be able to make it happen, but more than anything, they want to do something new. Around that time, he was a lot more involved in the development of Mario games, and striking a balance between the freedom of 3D games and the simplicity and accessibility of 2D games was at the forefront in his mind. Then in a 2015 Eurogamer interview, it's a similar story, though here, Miyamoto gives us our most solid nugget of hope yet. "A new Mario Galaxy is always in discussion," Miyamoto told Eurogamer, "but even with Mario 64, there was a lot of feedback about motion sickness with the 3D, or maybe us making it too difficult. Going back to our roots and making new Super Mario Bros., anyone can play that, so that's why we went back. We're always thinking, is there a middle ground where people who do enjoy the 3D worlds of Galaxy and those who enjoy new Super Mario Bros. Can both enjoy it? We're always looking at those opportunities. On the other hand, me and Koizumi-san, director of Galaxy, are always looking to challenge Galaxy and do another 3D action title. However, we can't make so many games at once in parallel. But as the hardware technology gets better and advances, I think there will be a lot of opportunity for both options." I think we shouldn't pull too much meaning from this because, again, he's speaking very broadly about how to balance these different Mario experiences between simple 2D and more complex 3D. I think when he says we're always looking to challenge Galaxy and do another 3D action title, I don't think he's talking about making another Galaxy, but but rather challenging themselves to top it. Because this was after 3D World, and I think even they could see that the game didn't have the same scope as Galaxy. 3D World really was about balancing out both of those experiences, coming to something of a middle ground, which I must say they achieved perfectly, for better or worse. However, you can't deny that here he is expressing a real desire to make another Galaxy. It's always in discussion. The idea is always on the table. It's always considered. Or at least it was a decade ago. The biggest problem, again, is needing, for the most part, to only focus on one big Mario at a time. Now, it's possible I'm missing something here, but I'm not seeing anything else beyond this handful of interviews regarding the idea of Nintendo doing Galaxy 3. It seems like the last time anyone asked Miyamoto or anyone else this question was over 10 years ago. And this is kind of bizarre, because Miyamoto's done a ton of interviews for the Super Mario Galaxy movie, and it's kind of hard to believe that the question wouldn't come up even one time. We're all wondering more than ever. The movie has brought new life to the conversation, and yet we got nothing to work with here. The best we've gotten is the idea that Miyamoto thinks it would be fun to work the new Rosalina Peach lore into future games. And I find this suspicious. Pure speculation, but I have to wonder if maybe the question was forbidden. It's common, especially for interviews with humongous figures like Miyamoto, for the questions to be vetted ahead of time. How likely would it really be for not even one interviewer to ask about the possibility of Galaxy 3? It would make sense if they weren't allowed to. And if that's the case, big if, again, pure speculation, could that suggest that the question hit a little too close to home? Might Nintendo have a big secret up their sleeve and they don't want to be confronted with such questions at the moment? Or could it be that the idea of doing a Galaxy 3 is so off the table after all these years that they just don't want to hear about it? They don't want to even bring it up and give all the news outlets more fodder and have everyone like hanging on every little word, searching for clues, trying to find some evidence of something that doesn't and probably will never exist. Maybe it could go both ways, but the unfortunate fact of the matter is that these recent interviews haven't given us a thing. Which is unfortunate, because if they were looking to tease us, to give us another crumb of hope after over a decade of waiting, this probably would have been the time, right? I mean, if not now, then when? So yeah, overall, I'm doubtful. It's not impossible. I do believe that Miyamoto would like to do Galaxy 3, but he doesn't even really work on games anymore. Uh-oh, gotta change that line. But he rarely works on games these days. Maybe Koizumi feels the same way. Maybe he also likes the idea, but wanting to do something and being able to are two different things. Do I sometimes wonder what would be so impossible about either getting outside help or growing and splitting the studio in two and spending all these years and years and years training up new creative leads so that you can make two big Mario games at once without feeling stretched thin, and maybe we can get one every 3 or 4 years like we used to instead of like 10? Yeah, I do wonder that from time to time, but what do I know? I'm a nobody. And hey, if the rumor is true that we're gonna get a new 3D Mario in 2027, then that might actually suggest that they've done that, or something like that, that there was probably at least some overlap between it and DK Bonanza. And if that's the case, and we're gonna start seeing more regular releases, then hey, maybe Galaxy 3 is more likely than I think. Very, very briefly though, let's end this discussion by pondering if Galaxy 3 would need to offer a very different, very new experience, what might that look like? As much as I love the idea of brainstorming a bunch of Galaxy 3 ideas, that's not what this video is about. Please let me know if you think that would be fun though. I would love to do that. But off the top of my head, I think opening up the game's world would be a good choice. I know making everything open world is like super obvious, but honestly, I think it's the next logical step for Galaxy. Not like Breath of the Wild, go anywhere, open world, but incorporate the essence of Sandbox Mario, 64, Sunshine, Odyssey, into the Galaxy experience, you know? Have some kind of hub where you can access planets and galaxies more freely. We had an observatory where we could spy distant places and launch to them, and then we had a ship to get around in. So now I'm picturing Mario with a jetpack or something, so we can fly around manually, like the Great Sea in Wind Waker, or to a lesser extent, the sky in Skyward Sword. Except now it's Mario, and it's in space, and maybe there's no up or down, and we can approach any place from any angle. I'm not sure if traveling in and out of the levels themselves could be seamless. You need to have some sort of barrier to funnel you to the start of a level so you can't just like fly to the end. Not sure exactly how that would work, but something like that. Take the core ideas of Galaxy and blow everything up. Introduce lots of freedom, tons of exploration, a hub you get to fly around in, and ideally make several planets and galaxies that are much bigger so you can freely explore them at your own pace. I love the Galaxy games, but as someone who grew up with Sandbox Mario, they didn't hit me quite the same way as most other people. The linearity just didn't feel as magical to me. So, personally, this would be the Galaxy 3 of my dreams. I mean, it's not just me though. The Switch generation showed that more open games are more likely to reach bigger audiences. The freedom simply resonates with more people. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm jumping to conclusions here, but both Mario and Zelda went open, and those games are currently the best-selling titles in their respective series several times over. If you want to do something new with Galaxy that really refreshes it and resonates with a modern audience, something more sandboxy would do it, I think. But that's all I'll dream up for now. Seriously though, let me know if a Galaxy 3 brainstorm video would be fun, because I think that would be a lot of fun. Ultimately, I don't know if Galaxy 3 is gonna happen, but I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And for now, all we can do is continue to dream.